You know that voice in your head at 3 a.m.? The one that whispers things you'd never say out loud? That's not your enemy. That's your sexual shadow, and it's been waiting for you to listen. There's a part of you that you keep locked away. Not just from others, but from yourself. You push it down, laugh it off, scroll past it. But when the world goes quiet and you're alone with your thoughts, it starts talking. Raw desire. Confusing fantasies. Things that don't fit into pretty conversations or romantic movies. It's not about love or even sex. It's about power, control, giving in, shame, and fear all mixed together. Carl Jung didn't run from this dark corner of human nature. He called it the sexual shadow. And here's what made him different. He didn't say to destroy it or pretend it wasn't there. He said something that makes most people uncomfortable. You need to face it and make it part of who you are. Because if you don't deal with your sexual shadow, it will deal with you. Through addiction, broken relationships, emotional emptiness, sudden waves of shame, and patterns that keep repeating no matter how hard you try to change. The sexual shadow isn't just about hidden lust. It's every part of your sexuality that someone told you was wrong, dirty, dangerous, or unlovable. The desire you said no to, the experience you buried deep, the fantasy you judged, the softness you never let yourself feel. It lives underground in your mind. And like any buried thing, ignoring it doesn't make it die. It waits. It grows. And eventually it shows up in ways that scare and confuse you. Maybe you get angry at people who make you feel desire. Maybe you keep chasing empty hookups because real closeness terrifies you. Maybe you want to be controlled or want to control others and hate yourself for it. Maybe you mix up love with putting on a show. Maybe you feel nothing during sex, or worse, you can't feel anything at all. You think something's broken in you. You call it dysfunction. But Jung would say it's not dysfunction, it's disconnection. You're not broken. You're split in two. The part of you that got pushed away, the part you called sick or sinful, became your shadow. And it's not just hiding. It's trying to come back home. The sexual shadow is where your deepest wounds meet your strongest instincts. Where holding back becomes twisting. Where shame becomes obsession. Where the parts of you that never got love become dangerous. Jung warned that what you don't make conscious will come back as fate. And nothing returns more powerfully than buried sexual energy because it's not just energy. It's who you are. It's longing. It's the most honest part of your humanity trying to reach the surface. Yet most people never talk about it. Not in therapy, not in spiritual conversations, not even in their private thoughts. They keep it locked up because it doesn't fit the image they're trying to maintain. The good person, the pure one, the enlightened soul, the healed and evolved version of themselves. But behind the mask, the shadow burns. And the more you try to push it down, the more control it takes. You'll see it in fantasies you didn't choose but can't forget. In dreams that leave you shaking. In relationships where you play roles you don't understand. In sudden guilt when you try to feel good. In quiet panic when someone sees too much of who you really are. Because the sexual shadow isn't always loud. Sometimes it's silence. A silence so deep it becomes detachment. A disconnection so quiet it feels normal. You call it low sex drive. You call it stress. You call it growing up. But really it's grief. Grief for the parts of you that were never allowed to be real. Desire that never had words. Attraction that never had a home. Power that was always too much. Jung didn't say to obey the shadow. He said to know it, see it, invite it in, talk with it. Because once you start that conversation, something changes. You stop being afraid of yourself. You stop apologizing for being human. and you begin the scary and beautiful process of becoming whole. This isn't about acting on every impulse. It's about understanding where the impulse comes from, what it's trying to say, what part of you it's trying to wake up. Because underneath the sexual shadow is something sacred, your unmet need for wholeness. Not just physical wholeness, emotional, energetic, soul-level integration. Your sexual shadow isn't proof that you're sick. It's proof that you're fragmented and longing for wholeness, finally ready to reclaim the pieces of you that got buried. Carl Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This is where it starts. Not with fantasy, not with denial, but with one honest question. What part of your desire have you buried? And what has it cost you to keep it hidden? That's the first crack in the shell. The truth is your sexual shadow isn't your enemy. It's the part of you that wants to come home. There's a reason you were taught to hide it. Not just by your parents, religion, or culture, but by the very way your mind works. Carl Jung believed that the human mind doesn't grow as one piece. It splits. It breaks apart. It builds walls to survive. When you're young, anything that feels unsafe, unaccepted, or socially dangerous gets pushed underground. This isn't a mistake. It's a survival tool. Your ego protects what it thinks will help you function in the world, and it buries everything else. This buried part becomes the shadow. And when it comes to sexuality, this splitting is often violent and early because desire isn't just about sex. It's about instinct, expression, vulnerability, control. It's the first time a child feels something powerful that can't be named. And if that energy is met with shame, punishment, or silence, it gets cut off. The child learns, this part of me isn't safe. This part of me is bad. This part of me must be hidden. And what gets hidden becomes twisted. It doesn't disappear. It changes form. Jung warned that anything buried in the unconscious will eventually surface, but not in its original form. It comes back as fear, as compulsion, as projection. Because the unconscious doesn't follow logic. It speaks in symbols. It speaks through attraction, disgust, fantasy, and discomfort. It will project your unowned sexual energy onto others. You'll become obsessed with people who embody the very parts of yourself you've disowned. You'll judge them. You'll desire them. You'll hate them. You'll try to save them. But what you're really doing is trying to reclaim yourself. This is the trap of projection. Your mind tries to complete itself through others. You think it's about them. It's not. It's about you. The woman you can't stop thinking about. The man you feel drawn to and resent. The people you secretly envy or quietly shame. They are mirrors. Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. This includes and especially includes sexual reactions. If someone makes you uncomfortable, ask yourself, what are they expressing that I've pushed down? Is it freedom? Is it dominance? Is it softness? Is it raw need? Is it pleasure without guilt? Whatever it is, it's yours too. It's just living in your shadow. And as long as it stays buried, you will never be free. Because holding back doesn't lead to virtue, it leads to fragmentation. You become half alive. You smile politely, say all the right things, perform emotional intelligence, but underneath, something is suffocating. The more refined you become on the outside, the more chaos builds within. Because your body remembers what your mind denies. It aches in silence. It sends signals. It triggers you when you least expect it. Desire doesn't disappear just because you've trained yourself to ignore it. It becomes shadow-bound. And the deeper it hides, the more extreme it gets. That's why so many people live double lives. One is clean, curated, and rational. The other is chaotic, compulsive, and full of contradictions they can't explain. This isn't hypocrisy. It's a symptom of disconnection. And the more disconnected you are from your shadow, the more power it holds over you. Jung said, "The shadow is a tight passage, a narrow door whose painful constriction no one is spared who goes down to the deep well. But on the other side of that door is wholeness. Because your shadow, especially your sexual shadow, isn't just where your wounds live. It's where your energy lives. Your vitality, your aliveness, your ability to connect, to create, to experience joy that isn't filtered through shame. This is the hidden truth. Most people aren't tired because of physical exhaustion. They're tired because they are constantly holding themselves back. The effort it takes to look appropriate, feel appropriate, want appropriately, it drains the soul. Jung saw this in his patients. He said that what we call mental illness is often just the result of someone avoiding legitimate suffering. People suffer anyway, but instead of moving through it, they get stuck in shame loops. So what's the way out? Not indulgence, not control, not sterilization, but awareness. To sit with the parts of you that make you uncomfortable. To ask, where did I learn to fear this part of myself? Who told me it was wrong? And what would happen if I allowed myself to feel it? Not act on it, not suppress it, just feel it. That's how integration begins. Not by judging the shadow, not by worshiping it either, but by entering into relationship with it. Because until you do, your sexual energy will stay fragmented. It will leak out in ways you can't manage. It will create confusion, guilt, sabotage, and silence. But once you begin to name it, understand it, and bring it into consciousness, it transforms. It becomes power, not domination, but agency. Not performance, but presence. Not emptiness, but embodiment. You no longer chase things to feel whole. You no longer suppress things to feel safe. You stand in your full being raw, honest, integrated. Jung said that wholeness is not perfection. Wholeness is the union of opposites. And nowhere is that union more necessary than in how you experience your own desire. You are not wrong for wanting. You are not broken for feeling. But you are at risk if you keep dividing yourself between who you are and who you think you should be. The shadow will not remain silent forever. And if you don't open the door, it will break through the wall. Let it speak now while it can still be heard gently, before it comes back louder. Before it returns as fate. You think you're in control. You think you're choosing who you're attracted to, who you fall in love with, who you push away, who you chase. But beneath every decision is a map you didn't draw. A blueprint made of silence, shame, childhood, culture, trauma, absence. This is what Carl Jung warned us about. He said, what we fail to make conscious becomes fate. And nowhere does that warning echo louder than in your sexuality. Because you can build a beautiful life on the surface. You can have a career, a partner, a schedule, a smile. But if your sexual shadow is still buried, your life will slowly become unrecognizable to you. You'll wake up next to someone you don't feel. You'll touch without presence. You'll stay in relationships that numb you and destroy the ones that make you feel too much. You'll confuse emotional safety with boredom. You'll run from depth because it reminds you of pain. You'll crave what wounds you and reject what heals you, and you won't understand why. But Jung knew what happens when a person refuses to meet their own shadow. They don't just become detached. They become divided. And a divided self creates divided relationships. You'll be physically present but emotionally absent. Sexually active but psychologically shut down. You'll smile during intimacy while something inside you disappears. And slowly your partner will feel it. They won't know what's missing, but they'll feel it. They'll think it's about them. They'll blame themselves. They'll question their worth. But really, they're just standing in the presence of someone who hasn't faced themselves. And this is how the sexual shadow destroys relationships. Not with violence, but with vacancy. You can't give what you haven't reclaimed. You can't connect if you're split in two. You can't touch another soul if you're still afraid of your own. And the most terrifying part, people adapt to this. They make numbness normal. They call it stability. They call it maturity. They pretend the fire that once moved through them was just youth. But deep down they know. They know they buried something real. And no amount of performance can replace it. This is the hidden consequence of an unredeemed sexual shadow. You don't just lose passion, you lose presence. And when presence dies, love becomes maintenance. But the damage doesn't stop at relationships. It spreads into how you move through the world, into your creativity, into your spiritual life, into your sense of meaning. Jung said that repression of sexuality leads to psychic splitting not just in the bedroom but in the soul. Because sexual energy is not just physical. It is symbolic. It is archetypal. It is the raw creative force of your being trying to move through you. And when that force is blocked, everything slows down. You procrastinate. You overthink. You numb. You fantasize instead of act. You withhold instead of express. And all of it feels logical, justified, reasonable. But it's not reason. It's resistance. You are resisting life itself. And the cost of that resistance is invisible at first, until it becomes everything. Until you don't recognize your own eyes, until your voice sounds like a stranger, until you stop expecting anything extraordinary to happen to you. You call it burnout. You call it fatigue. But Jung would call it disintegration. You are being dismantled by your own refusal to feel. And society only reinforces this disconnection. We live in a world that's hypersexualized and emotionally sterile. We use sexuality to sell products, to drive clicks, to get attention, but we never sit with its truth. We never ask why we chase it endlessly but rarely feel fulfilled. Why we can talk about sex loudly and still feel shame silently. Why we desire intensely but touch each other like we're made of glass. Because society doesn't want your wholeness. It wants your confusion. The more disconnected you are from your inner world, the easier you are to manipulate, monetize, distract. The shadow becomes profitable and you stay stuck, half awake, half alive. But Jung didn't offer despair. He offered confrontation. He said that facing your shadow is the beginning of transformation. That reclaiming your sexual shadow isn't just about healing trauma. It's about reclaiming your power. Because when you know what moves you, truly know, you can no longer be controlled. You stop craving empty validation. You stop settling for lifeless intimacy. You stop shrinking your desires to make others comfortable. You stop using sexuality as performance and start living it as presence. But you must be willing to go through the fire, to grieve the years you betrayed yourself, to feel the desires you've never spoken aloud, to admit that you've been living a life that's only half yours. And that is not weakness. That is not regression. That is the first act of becoming whole. Because what the world calls darkness, Jung called potential. And the moment you turn toward your shadow, your real life begins. Not the one built on denial, not the one curated for others, but the life that was waiting underneath all along. The sexual shadow doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be faced. Because the only thing more dangerous than your desire is your refusal to meet it. You've spent years keeping this part of you in the dark. Maybe you didn't mean to. Maybe you thought it would protect you. Maybe you were told it was the right thing to do, to be clean, to be good, to be safe. But the part of you that you've buried, that you've denied, silenced, hidden, it hasn't disappeared. It's waiting. Not to hurt you, not to control you, but to be seen. Because your sexual shadow is not evil. It's unintegrated life, unclaimed power, unmet truth. And it's not going anywhere. You can keep hiding, or you can turn around and face what's been following you. The choice is simple: wholeness or performance, presence or numbness, a life lived from the surface or a life lived from the soul. Comment below, I'm ready to reclaim what I buried. Subscribe to Innerfunda for more Jungian truth like this, and share this with someone who's still afraid of what's already inside them. Stop running. It's time to return home.